Blessings, beloveds. Welcome back. I thought I'd just jump on and actually just talk a little bit about Mercury ingressing into Scorpio. Now, today I've just been watching a lot of things that are being exposed and revealed worldwide. It's the ongoing saga of Saturn square Uranus. And we are just seeing an escalation of intensity, particularly since the new moon in Scorpio took place just a couple of days ago. And I think Mercury's ingress into Scorpio just the other day has really amplified everything. I've just noticed that there's actually around about 30,000 people protesting in Melbourne, the current city that I'm actually located in. It's a peaceful protest, but it's a very passionate and loud protest from the point of view of the speakers involved, speaking on the behalf of people, as in we have 6 million people here in this state, all of which are not standing up, of course, but there are many that are. I found it really interesting because there's, just to give you guys a little bit of a background, just a quick synopsis. In this particular state in Australia, the premier of the state is trying to have a particular bill passed, okay? And this particular bill corresponds to the power of emergency laws that will give him the sole right and power to basically implement the emergency laws whenever he sees fit. So it's not going to be based on health professionals, scientists, or any other professionals for that matter. The power will just be in his hands. So naturally, the people are opposing that, of course, because this is the emergency laws speak to the whole pandemic laws and so on and so forth. So it's a pretty critical historical period here in this state, in this country. Now, there are things going on all around the world. I've just actually had a little scan through, and in the last 24 to 48 hours, there have been protests in, I lost count of all the countries: Ukraine, Iran, Australia, United Kingdom, Portugal, Russia, America. It's really amplifying now. We know that there's been people speaking up, collectively, through protests and so forth. But it's actually getting to the next level now, because the story is actually amplifying, and we're getting very close to the last square between Saturn and Uranus. And a couple of things that I found really interesting relative to corresponding the nature of events to the archetypes, which is basically what we need to be doing in terms of understanding astrology and how it literally reflects back to us the archetypes, okay, very simply put. One thing I realized today was that with Saturn in Aquarius, okay, which still has quite some time, transiting through that sign, whilst there's been incredible tyranny and matters of separation and segregation and things of that nature going on the external reality, there's also been a large group of people universally that belong to systems and governments and structures such as police forces, such as doctors and nurses, who have actually had the courage to stand up and speak out. Speak up on matters that they know are actually true and know that are actually untrue as well. And it's taken tremendous courage, for people in those professions, and any profession for that matter. But relating the Saturn and Aquarius to those professions, doctors, police, nurses, and so forth, because those people in those professions would be defined and described by Saturn. Okay, that's the Saturn structure of those sorts of different roles, particularly when you're talking about government and police. It's authority. Saturn is authority. But yet we have Saturn in Aquarius, and Aquarius represents the people, right? So it's very fascinating to me that it's been hundreds and thousands. It's not just a few here and there. The consensus media is just not going to show you the truth of what's going on. That's a fact. Anyone who denies that or who doesn't understand that, then I really don't know, what to say to that. But we have, and I know this exists in, many different countries, there's alternate media people that are actually showing what's actually really going on. And relative to people on the streets and so on and so forth. So we are very fortunate actually that we have these people revealing the truth of actually what's going on. The new moon in Scorpio, as I've spoken about, and Mars in Scorpio, and now we have Mercury in Scorpio. The very interesting thing here in Melbourne that happened today was the words that were being used relative to the speakers in this protest were words like trust, betrayal, danger, fate. All these words correspond to the Scorpion archetype, right? And so here we have this, amplified Scorpion energy taking place on the ether at the moment, and it's bringing up people's intensity and passion. It's actually just amplifying everything that's sort of been brewing for the last almost 2 years. So the things that were said, were things like the Melburnians feel, incredibly betrayed. They have no trust in, the premier, the government, and so forth. The bill. This is a really funny bit, actually. The bill that is trying to be passed at the moment. A bill is actually ruled by Mercury, okay? And Mercury is in Scorpio, and the most popular slogan and chant at the moment here in this particular state and country is "Kill the Bill," and killing corresponds to the archetype of Scorpio, and you can kind of interpret that in a number of different ways. I'm not talking about violence or anything like that, but we're just talking about putting an end, right? Scorpio is putting things to an end, right? It's the death of something. It's also the rebirth of something, but putting an end to a bill that could potentially take away the freedom and the sovereignty of all people here in this state. So I just think it's a really funny correlation, kill the bill, Mercury and Scorpio, Mercury, the bill, Scorpio, putting it to an end, right? So that was just a funny side note that I just kind of connected with today. So yeah, look, there's a great deal of passion and intensity going on the planet relative to the storyline that's been playing out for nearly 2 years. We all know what it is. I don't need to go into it, but I think the most important thing perhaps to point to and to recognize at the moment is that with this Scorpio new moon opposing Uranus and transiting Mars being in Scorpio as well, which will also oppose Uranus and it will square Saturn. Now Mercury in Scorpio, it's going to go through that same journey where it's going to square Saturn and oppose Uranus. So this Saturn-Uranus square, that's really the absolute raw essence of the nature of reality, is hitting off, every kind of season we're having, with like at the moment being in Scorpio season with the Scorpio new moon and personal planets ingressing into Scorpio. So this month, I've said this from quite some time, November is, probably one of the most intense months I think that we'll encounter. And of course, because everything is virtually in Scorpio, right? So that's not a surprise, really. Unfortunately, there are some violent things going on as well. I saw some protests in the Northern Hemisphere where there was extreme violence by the authorities directed to the people. There's some tragedies that will occur out of this as well, but it's really just the amplification of a very old system that has been around for thousands of years, needing to actually just take a step back and let go, withdraw of its powers, which basically interferes with liberty and freedom and so forth. So it is, we are living in absolute historical times, and it doesn't matter where you are on the globe. And it's again, my position is it's not about passing judgment on any position that people wish to take, but it is about actually being representing at least fairness, justice, and equality, and pro-choice, right? And understanding that there is a story playing out, and you can look at it in many different ways, and you can be really asleep about it. You can be really detached from it. You can be really intense about it. It doesn't matter which position you kind of come from. I think the storyline is there for all of us to see. We may just have different sort of interpretations or perceptions, but I think given that we have, you know, a collective revolution going on, because it is a collective revolution, and there are those people that have, you know, signed up in their script before they were born. You know, their soul signed up in their script to actually be the voices and the advocates on the front line. You know, there are others that are doing work behind the scenes on the more esoteric and spiritual levels, which is basically, you know, pouring out a lot of love and light, because we need, but we need both. We need both levels to be activated. You know, when it comes to government and system, which has been crashing since Pluto entered into Capricorn, which is basically back in 2008, and we've just seen this gradual unfoldment of old systems actually being torn apart, which is Capricorn. We've seen this unfoldment, you know, sort of going on since 2008, and the amplification, it just hit a crisis point basically when we had the Saturn Pluto conjunction and Saturn Jupiter conjunction as well. So these cycles that speak to cycles that go on for many, many years just really hit things off that you know, that started back in 2008. So we're in the we're in the absolute heart of it now. You know, we are in the absolute core heart essence of it. It's undeniable what's actually going on. And again, it doesn't matter which position you take. I'm just the messenger, right? So don't shoot the messenger. I'm just the messenger for the astrological correlation to the nature of reality. Now, let me just bring up the transit chart, and let's just now go to perhaps some more mundane or perhaps more personal interpretations. So it's hard to not speak about, you know, the matters of what's going on in the world, because I would have to be completely blind, or I would have to be situated in some corner of the earth where I can't actually see what's going on. The fact is, I'm not. I'm actually based in a country where the longest and most severe lockdowns and freedoms have been taken away. So I've been experiencing it viscerally and literally, you know, for a very long time. And I am a very passionate person about justice and freedom and equality, always have been, way before any of this stuff ever came about. You know, when I was at school, if I saw a kid being bullied, or if I saw somebody being treated unfairly, I had a pretty strong response to that kind of situation. So that's just innate within me. That's how I'm made up. I am here to speak. I am here to use my voice in a number of different ways, through my personal work to help people, and through public forums and platforms, to be a voice of what I would consider reason and pro-choice and freedom. Okay, so that's just where I stand. So Mercury in Scorpio, here it is. Here it got there yesterday. It's going to create quite a few aspects. One thing I picked up was that I've just lost the page. Okay. Let me see if I can just find it again, because I liked what I read about this. So just at the moment, while Mercury has ingress into Scorpio, it's actually conjunct an asteroid called Atlantis. So there is an asteroid called Atlantis. And I don't know how many of you are aware of the history of Atlantis or the asteroid, but there is an asteroid called Atlantis, which is currently at 0 degrees of Scorpio. So Mercury is right on there. And the history of Atlantis actually does connect to Santorini, the island in Greece as well. there's a lot to Atlantis. I'm not going to do it justice in just a word or two, or a sentence or two, but essentially it's a time in history. Some people say it's myth, it's not real. I believe it's 100% real. Uh, many of us had lifetimes there as priestesses, as priests, as goddesses, as very high ascended type of people in our roles, working with light and love and crystals and magic and alchemy and all that sort of stuff. So Atlantis holds that kind of vibration. But this particular individual said that uh, Atlantis also corresponds to mystics and healers and astrologers and things of that nature, of course. But one comment she said here, let me just find it. It holds a message of a warning where we could suffer. Let me just got Facebook open because I was just kind of watching the protests. Let me start that again. A warning that we could suffer some destruction and peril if we allow greed and separation to get in the way. Now, I think that's a pretty interesting comment, and I think that's quite applicable to the current nature of reality, right? Because Saturn and Uranus squaring each other, which is the result of the what we're seeing on Earth with the protests and the apparent division and so forth. This kind of speaks to that there's a danger there if people don't, I suppose, wake up. Wake up to what? Wake up to the truth that resides within them, first and foremost. Wake up to the truth of divine source creation to all things. Wake up to the divine plan. Wake up in consciousness, all that sort of stuff. But relative to the mundane external reality, I think it's actually speaking to the nature of greed as it is projected and driven through systems and governments and power and control of a small group of people whom wish to exercise this level of power and control on the masses. Okay, and so this is really dangerous if people don't understand that, don't see that, don't stand up, to what is actually happening. I mean, just some very basic examples. In this particular state, and this is certainly the case in a lot of countries and a lot of states, but at the moment, if you are not, if you haven't actually submitted to or consented to, which is an uninformed consent to the program that's playing out, then you are basically a second-class citizen. You are cast out of society. That's not an exaggeration. That's actually what's happening, and I'm sure many of you are, well and truly aware of that. So, in the state that I live in, I can't walk into a coffee shop or a restaurant and sit down and have something to eat or have a coffee. Young people who have just finished school, who want to start an apprenticeship, want to start their young career, can't do so unless they've actually conformed to the status quo. Okay, the storyline of the status quo. So there is, hi Coco, there is in no uncertain terms segregation, separation, and portion of humanity being cast out. That's a fact. Now, is that just? Is that fair? Absolutely not. What is it based on? Is it based on real evidence relative to the nature of this potential health crisis? Well, we know that as time has unfolded, that so much information has come out that has proved the contrary to what has been stated for a very long time. So, again, whatever position you take, whatever you believe is entirely up to you. I'm not even speaking about my personal opinion. I'm actually pointing to sources of information that just continuously keeps coming through. And the source, this, did you want to say something? I think she wants to say something. Shall I continue? Do you want to come up here? I think she's got Mercury in Scorpio from memory. Anyway, so as I was saying, there is so much that is being exposed, on a daily basis, and certainly the Scorpio season is the time for things to be exposed, because Scorpio exposes lies. It leaves no stone unturned. It cuts like a knife when it speaks. Mercury in Scorpio. Mercury in Scorpio is the investigator. So, this is a chance for all of us to use our own investigative skills mentally, and ask questions, ask more questions about what is actually being presented, in order to make an informed, choice or decision, or an informed, consensual decision, and so forth. So anyway, we're just seeing the amplification of all of this, and I'm actually loving it personally. I love that Scorpio just exposes the bullshit. It's its job, it's what it does well, and it's what it's here to do, and it has to be done. As we go on through the month, there's going to be, some interesting things happening. First of all, we've got Venus that's ingressed into Capricorn. And this is a very important journey from now with Venus, because this is a sign she's going to go retrograde in, right, in January. So she's going to form the conjunction to the Sun, the Cazimi conjunction. It's going to be the Capricorn Venus star point. I'm going to be speaking about that with Ariel Gutman, which I'm really excited about. But I think it's well worth considering Venus's ingress into Capricorn from now, actually, because it's happening now. And so she's activating that Venus star point already. She's going to be forming a conjunction to Pluto. And so this energy is already starting to roll out, to unfold. Okay. And Venus has always got to do, well, it depends if you're looking at the Venus star point, depends if you're looking at Venus herself. There are different ways of looking at it, but in the archetype of Capricorn, and forming this conjunction to Pluto, it is going to be many significant things coming to light relative to more systems and government and authorities and so forth. Pluto is just going to expose the held structures that are still standing, the ones that are, that is. There's much more to it than that, but I just want to leave that aside to talk to Ariel about that. So I won't go too much into the Venus in Capricorn, but it is worth noting that this process that she's going to take us through, which is the underworld process, as she goes retrograde, she, for 40 days and 40 nights, she basically is in the underworld. So there's going to be a lot of things come through the earth, if you like, that Venus is going to bring to light for us. She's the second brightest light after the moon in the heavens, right? In terms of the celestial bodies. She is the cosmic heartbeat. And as a morning star, which is what she's going to be in January, the morning star Venus, goddess, corresponds to earthly matters, okay? It's where she gets things done that are really important on the earth plane for the earth and humanity. And in Capricorn, that's kind of like a double signature, right? Because Capricorn is an earth sign as well. So we can feel the amplification of this already kicking off, because it is about the structures, the laws, the governments, the apparent man-made laws and so forth that are trying to be passed in different countries in different ways, that Uranus, the people, opposite Mars, that's going to be a big one, right? And I've spoken about that because I did a Mars in Scorpio video, but this actually feeds into this Mercury ingress into Scorpio, because Mercury is going to, let me just see, it's going to form a conjunction to Mars on the 10th of November. So I think we can expect that to be a really important time relative to world collective events, of course. Then on the same day, as a matter of fact, Mercury is going to be squaring Saturn. And then 3 days later, on the 13th of November, it's going to be forming an opposition to Uranus. Later in the month, on the 18th, it's going to form a trine to Neptune. And then around about the 21st of November, it's going to form a sextile to Pluto. And then by the 25th of November, Mercury ingresses into Sagittarius. But there is quite an interesting journey that Mercury takes us through. And I guess from our own personal space and life journey, this is a great opportunity to tune into our own mental faculties, our own thought processes, our ideas, our learning, our understanding. Scorpio is all about desire, right? So desire, passion, deep investigation, exploration. It, as I said, it leaves no stone unturned. So that, I mean, on a collective level, the Mercury in Scorpio is going to be the messenger of exposing the lies and revealing the truth. And when it opposes Uranus, we can expect some pretty radical information to be distributed on the earth plane collectively. It's going to be really unexpected and really radical stuff that's going to come out. It's going to blow people's minds on the other side of the earth plane, right? And this is the case because what I just described is what a Mercury Uranus can do, amongst many other things. It's sudden flashes of insight, it's quick thinking, it's thinking outside of the box. It's, all those Uranian things relative to our mind, Mercury, left brain. But because we can apply this to the collective narrative, we can expect that there's going to be some pretty shocking news, Mercury, that's going to be revealed. And I don't know exactly what that's going to be, but nothing would surprise me. Nothing would surprise me. And Uranus rules surprises and shock and the unexpected and things that just pop up suddenly. And with Mercury in Scorpio being opposite Uranus, imagine what it's going to dredge up. Imagine what it's going to dig into and what it's going to bring up to the surface for the world to see. I'm actually looking forward to this. It's going to be very, very exciting. Now, when's the square? The square happens first. Mercury square Saturn happens before the Mercury-Uranus opposition. So that, I think that's going to be a bit of a frustrating sort of point relative to the collective consensus reality and things that are still creating a sense of blockage, separation, frustrations, and things like that. But on the other hand, on a more positive level, it can also be a position where we may have to also reorient our own thinking about certain structures and certain models and things that we've followed and believed in. And the Saturn is the indication of that. The square from Mercury to Saturn, it can be having some blinkers on sometimes and being a little bit narrow-minded in our thinking. So the challenge here is going to be, because Mercury in Scorpio, it's not narrow, it's not blocked, it's actually quite deep, with where it goes. In fact, it's very, very deep with where it goes. So the square, it is a tension point. And I guess on that particular day, if there's something really important going on in your life, this transit could be quite significant, right? But it will be around trying to reorient or resolve some sort of conflict with a particular perspective and thought process that you do have relative to just what's happening in your structured sort of reality, right? But at a collective level, I think this is just going to be a really interesting manifestation of control, government systems. Perhaps it will be on some part of the external collective narrative, it might be trying to stop and block certain information, Mercury, of coming to the surface. But Saturn's not going to be able to do it, because what happens is a couple of days later, Mercury reaches its opposition to Uranus. So whatever Saturn might have been holding or hiding back, Uranus is just going to basically reveal and smash right through. So it's going to be an interesting month from that perspective relative to Mercury batters, which is a huge thing on the planet, because Mercury corresponds to all communication, all speech, media, online information, emails, telephone calls, data, everything to do with the written and spoken word of communication, personally, collectively, professionally, etc. Right? So it is a very big deal that we've got Mercury transiting through Scorpio in the backdrop of the nature of reality at the moment. And as I said, I'm loving this energy. I can't wait to see what's going to show up and be revealed further. Okay, I think that's really about it. I just wanted to make a couple of quick comments, and I guess on a personal note, use this energy. It's very similar to the new moon in Scorpio, Mars ingressing into Scorpio, except we're talking about Mercury now, which has got to do with your thinking, your mind. Allow yourself to go into greater depth in your research, your study, your mental sort of habits and thoughts and things you're thinking about. Allow yourself to to expose what's going on in your own mind. What's lurking in the corners of your mind. What's the material there that you are attached to. Remember, Taurus is attachments and Scorpio is breaking free from attachment, right? Because Scorpio is the archetype that helps us release. It's the scorpion, the eagle, the phoenix. It's about purging and transforming. So in this case, we're transforming the mental data that we have accumulated that is suppressed, or that is denied, or where you might need to further investigate something very specific in your life. This is a great time to investigate certain things in your life that you need to mentally understand better, but not only better, but understand from, I would say, a position of deeper truths, because that's Scorpio. And it's the X-ray vision. So if you picked up a document and you, by normal standards, you don't generally go, oh, Coco looks so beautiful. She's got her face on my computer just on the bottom there. If you're not the sort of person that digs sort of very deep into things that you read, and that could be for a number of different reasons. Well, with Mercury in Scorpio, every single document that you come across, that you engage in, whether it's a book or whatever, you're able to actually go into a different level of mental focus with Mercury in Scorpio. And that's why documents and material that's being dispersed on the earth plane with Mercury in Scorpio, it won't be superficial. Scorpio is far from superficial. So exciting times. Tune into what feels right for you. Stand in your truth, stand in your power. Remember, Scorpio is the archetype of self-empowerment. And never mind what anybody else is doing necessarily. It's not about making judgments or anything like that, but rather let's look at our own journey, our own position, our own life. But of course, if we want to connect with communities and unite with specific tribes and groups, you will actually unite and connect with pretty intense and passionate people during this time. Also, just a final note with Mercury in Scorpio, it has a very sharp tongue. It has a tongue like a knife. It can, sort of sting, quite deeply from a verbal perspective. So perhaps we just need to be a little bit mindful of our communication during these times as well, because Scorpio is like this. It's a sting, and it can really sting people with its words as well. So yeah, leave you there and send you all much love and see you soon. Thanks for listening, and bye for now.